Tonight, we are examining a story many families across Africa are confronting quietly and sometimes painfully. Young Africans traveling to Russia for what they believe are jobs or scholarships and ending up on the front lines of the war in Ukraine. This is not a rumor. This is not social media talk. Multiple international investigations, including reporting from CNN, BBC, Reuters, Al Jazeera, and analysis from the Atlantic Council, point to a pattern that deserves serious attention. So let's break it down. What is happening, why it's happening, and what this means for Africa. The scope is huge, according to data cited by Ukrainian officials and referenced in international reporting. An estimated 1,700 Africans from more than 30 countries are believed to have served or serving in Russian military units. The countries are frequently mentioned include Uganda, Kenya, South Africa, Ghana, Nigeria, Zimbabwe, and many others. Others have returned home. Some remain unaccounted for. And here is the hard part. Survivor accounts and military analysis suggest that some foreign recruits receive very little training before being deployed to active combat in areas in eastern Ukraine. These are not office jobs, people. Any young person wanting to go to Russia to take part in some of these exercises, these are not office jobs. You are not going to wear a suit and tie. You are going to be given a gun to go on the front lines and kill some people or get killed. That's the hard truth. These are frontline laws. Let's look at it for what it is. So I've been talking to a lot of people asking me why I haven't done this, but let me try to maybe to put some kind of context into it. What pushes some of these young people to go to Russia to fight in a war that they have absolutely no idea what they are fighting for? So most of these young people did not leave home trying to become soldiers. They responded to ads for warehouse work, security, construction, and hospitality. The pay is often advertised between $2,000 and $3,000 a month. Of course, for someone stuck in unemployment and low wages, that sounds like a lifeline. Others were drawn in through scholarship schemes, and others were premised residency or a path to a Russian citizenship. But our investigations suggest that once in Russia, you have absolutely no control about what is going to happen to you. In fact, in most cases, some of the testimonies that we see, people are right once they get into the airport in Moscow, they're detained, taken into different places, and before you know it, they're taken to these training camps, given a few whatevers, and boom, they send them to the front lines. Some are steered, or others are pressured into signing military contracts. In some reported cases, visa status becomes leverage. The message sold is opportunity, but the reality is something else. It becomes a service in a war that you have absolutely no idea what is going on. First of all, you don't even speak the language. All these people, the testimonies that you see on social media, these young people don't speak the language. And secondly, let's face it, Russians are very racist people when it comes to how they deal with Africa. Even in Ukraine, the same thing. We've seen this happen before. At the beginning of the war, Africans were treated very, very differently compared to all the other refugees who are trying to flee. So let's keep that in mind. Why this works? It works because you have a lot of young unemployed people who want to do something with their lives. In many African countries, unemployment is very, very, very high. In some cases, it's up to like 70% or even more. So for educated young people who are struggling to find jobs, who want to start a family, to buy a car, who want to build a house, they have absolutely no way to do that because the kind of jobs they're doing cannot allow them to do that. At the same time, many people don't fully grasp how brutal this war has become. What it means for a foreign national to end up in combat. I don't even know how I can describe this because one, there's the number one thing, the challenge that you run into, the weather conditions like right now, it's freezing cold. If you've never been in winter and they throw you in that environment, you'd be lucky to survive. Then there's the language barrier. People don't speak Russian or any other language that is even close to them. So basically, these people are communicating by writing short notices, and sometimes they use Google Translate to translate what they're trying to say. You can imagine somebody is trying to train you to fight or to telling you to kill people, and they're saying shoot or kill or will kill you, but they're saying it in their language and you don't understand them. So let's be honest. I've seen a lot of recruitment messages on social media. I've talked to some people who have been part of this scheme, who have recruited people. Even some of these recruiters on the ground in Africa, they don't know what's going on. They make a little bit of money, of course, doing that, but I don't think they know that these people they are saying to Russia are being taken to go and serve in the military. Recruitment, in most cases, happens on social media, private chats, informal networks, word of mouth. And when you mix economic pressure with a dream of migration, a new life, a new passport, a new start, you create a perfect condition for exploitation. Now, for many, this is not ideology. It is about survival. The history and the politics. Russian relationship with Africa goes back decades. During the Cold War, for example, the Soviet Union supported a lot of liberation movements. I know so many people from across Africa who went to Russia to study there. Most of them ended up becoming doctors, engineers, lawyers. And to this day, they talk about how Russia gave them a home, gave them an opportunity to be great citizens for their country. So when you look at that relationship between Russia and Africa, these young people have every reason to want to go to Russia. And even more recently, you've seen in these countries where they've had coups. You look at Burkina Faso, you look at Mali, you look at Niger, you look at Chad, you look at almost all those countries that have had coups. Guess what? They all looked up to Russia. When they were kicking out the French or closing French and American bases, guess what? They were running around with Russian flags. So that's the reality that we are dealing with. And you also have to look at it for what it's worth. When these young people see some of this stuff on television, they want to emulate that. They want to be part of that conversation. They want to go and see for themselves. You know, it's one thing telling somebody that, hey, if you go to Russia, you're going to end up this way. But these young people want to see and touch and feel for themselves. Maybe, I digressed a little bit, but more recently, Russian military groups, including quote-unquote Wagner Group, now restructured into the formations often linked to Africa Corps, expanded its influence in places like Mali, in Chad, in Central African Republic. You have all those guys all over there looking up to Russia to do things for them. In fact, as a matter of fact, to Putin's credit, he has invited some of these leaders to Moscow, not once but several times. He's trying to sell a Russia that is mutually beneficial to some of these young people. So you see, there is interest. Then there are external pressures that push these young people to go to look for greener pastures. Now, for context, this is where global politics collides with local economics. Interestingly, some governments are beginning to speak out. For example, South Africa has repatriated some of its people. There also authorities there are also coming up with laws that, quote unquote, are anti-mercenary laws, but they're also looking into how these young people are being recruited, whether it was done legally or whether these people are being manipulated to think that, So there's a lot of happening. In Kenya, leaders have warned young people against these dangerous contracts disguised as a cooperation to address recruitment concerns. Ghana, Nigeria, and all these other countries are speaking up. I think the foreign minister of Ghana 2 days ago was in Ukraine, met with President Zelensky of Ukraine, and they discussed how to repatriate some of these young people who are prisoners of war, who are captured on the front lines and want to be sent back to Ghana. I've also seen a lot of young people, some from Uganda, some from Kenya, some from all these places, speaking about the harsh conditions, the reality that they are living in. They were promised jobs, they were promised a good life, but in reality, they are living in hell. Simply put, that's the kind of reality that they are living in. But on the other hand, you have people who went there genuinely. You have people who, for whatever reason, bought their own tickets and ended up somewhere in Moscow. And guess what? They were not told where they were going. They were lured into doing this. As of recent, there are some reports suggesting that Russia has quietly reduced the recruitment exercise in some of these countries after this diplomatic pressure and the fallout from these images that we see being posted on social media. The bottom line is this is no longer a quiet story. It's moving into public policy and public anger. Here is the uncomfortable truth, though. What does it say when some African youth see more opportunity in a foreign war on a front line where they don't even know they're going to make it than in their own domestic markets? African leaders, if you're watching some of these young people, think about it. Why should these young people put their lives on the line to go and serve in a war in Ukraine or in Russia when they could be contributing to the development of their own countries? I think African leaders, you failed your young people. These young people look up to you. They go to school. I always argue and say that the intellectual balance of power has been shifting in the young Africans' favor. Why? Because now you have more young educated Africans than ever before. Whether it's people with first degrees, second degrees, PhD, you have a lot of young people who are highly educated. That in tandem with social media, in tandem with the internet, and now artificial intelligence, you have incredibly talented people in Africa. So why are you not giving them opportunities? Why are these young people putting their lives on the line to go and serve in wars they have absolutely no idea what the war is all about? When a young person leaves home for warehouse work and ends up in a trench, this is not just a bad decision. It points to structural gaps and opportunity, information, and protection they lack at home. So to the African leaders watching this could be an opportunity for you guys really to look into addressing some of these structural problems that have forced these young people to leave their countries, to end up on the front lines. Some of them are being killed there. Those people who are lucky to make it are the people who are telling their story. You know, there used to be a famous president here called Nixon. He said that if you want history to treat you kindly, you either commission somebody to write that history for you or write it yourself. And in this particular case, thank God these young people were able to come out and speak about the horrors they're experiencing in fighting these wars in Russia, rather in Ukraine, Eastern Ukraine for Russia. This is horrendous. These young people are dealing with a lot, psychologically, emotionally. I saw a young guy from Kenya who these Russians had strapped a landmine across him, and they're telling him to go on the front lines to fight, to evade the Ukrainian forces. So what do you expect? When this young man shows up, those guys are gonna whatever, and he's gonna blow up. That's it. That's signing a death warrant. So seriously, African leaders, I think you are failing your own people, and you can do better. The report is what I'm trying to say is not trying to choose sides here. It's about awareness, due diligence, and protecting young people from contracts that may not fully understand what they're signing. The premise of being sold is opportunity, the risk being taken for some, and life itself. For sure, the Ukrainian war may be thousands of miles away, but for some African households, it's already at the dinner table. Mothers, fathers, widowers, people are talking about how they're losing their children, they're losing their sons and daughters in this fight. These are people who left the country going for greener pastures, and they end up dead in some of these wars. So we really need to rethink how we work, how we strategize, how we look at this thing. But for sure, what we are seeing in Russia is not a good one. The stories of these young people say a lot about what is happening in that war. So if anybody cares to listen, or if anybody is watching me right now, I think it's about time that we changed this narrative. We help these young people maybe to find some opportunity somewhere across Africa. And I think African leaders, you can do that. You have a lot of power, you have a lot of leverage to negotiate with these countries, especially Ukraine and Russia, at least to send back some of those people who are still alive. People who were lured into this deserve better. The parents of these young people deserve better. They deserve positive stories. That's my perspective for today, or you can say that's my 2 cents contribution to this discussion. If you appreciate this kind of independent journalism and balanced debate, support Ndiho Media, follow us on YouTube, X, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, Spotify, and Substack. You can also subscribe because that's how the algorithms are going to know that you care. This information means so much to you. So subscribe, share, like, and if you want to support us to continue doing this kind of journalism, donate to keep our platform going, to do research, to do streams, and to bring you conversations that you don't see anywhere. I think we are using technology to bring you conversations that you've never seen before. This platform, I've worked with a lot of developers to create a platform where we can literally talk about any subject and stream across the world using technology. So if you want this kind of independent journalism to continue, please help us by donating or or subscribing to the channel. We appreciate that, and thank you so much for watching.